Once the 4th of July smelled like sizzling butter, backyard smoke, and recipes no one remembers anymore. What happened to the flavors that once held a nation together under fireworks, skies, and fading traditions? These 30 forgotten dishes didn't just feed families, they told the story of American creativity, one wobbling mold and bubbling casserole at a time. Red, white, and blue Jell-O salad. Red, white, and blue Jell-O salad was not just a dessert, it was a spectacle on every 4th of July picnic table from the 1950s through the 1980s. This towering gelatin mold shimmered like a patriotic jewel, red cherry on the bottom, white whipped topping in the middle, and blue raspberry or blueberry on top, each layer chilled and set to perfection. Sometimes there were little chunks of canned fruit floating in the red, and occasionally blueberries or crushed pineapple nestled under the whipped center. The Jell-O molds started disappearing from holiday spreads. What was once a centerpiece became a punchline. We traded 3 colors and a childhood thrill for clear bowls of watermelon slices and Greek yogurt dips. But somewhere in an attic, the vintage copper mold still hangs. It remembers what we have chosen to forget. Perfection salad ring. Long before we worried about what looked Instagram-worthy, there was Perfection salad, and it earned that name honestly. This crystal-clear gelatin ring, studded with finely chopped cabbage, celery, and red pepper, graced tables with what food writers called jewel-like and impeccable molded precision. Picture slicing into that translucent dome and revealing a stained glass window of vegetables suspended in amber aspic. Each portion was a small work of art, the kind of food that made guests pause before taking that first bite. The flavor was clean and crisp, with a gentle vinegar tang that awakened taste buds without overwhelming them. Mrs. John Cook won 3rd prize in a Knox-sponsored cooking contest in 1905 with this very recipe. By 1972, James Beard admitted that her victory had unleashed a demand for congealed salads that has grown alarmingly, particularly in the suburbs. But back then, nobody was complaining about the alarm. Making Perfection salad required actual skill. The timing had to be perfect. Add the vegetables too early and they'd sink to the bottom. Too late and they'd break the gel. When done right, it was exactly what its name promised. We lost this art when convenience became more valuable than beauty, when we stopped believing that everyday ingredients could be transformed into something spectacular with just a little patience and care. Frozen fruit cocktail supreme. Before ice cream trucks ruled summer streets, creative cooks discovered that freezing could work magic on humble canned fruit. Frozen fruit cocktail supreme was summer's sweet answer to the eternal question of what to bring to the neighborhood potluck. A can of fruit cocktail, drained and folded into whipped cream or cream cheese, sometimes with mini marshmallows and chopped nuts for good measure. The mixture was poured into a loaf pan and frozen until firm enough to slice. When served, each portion revealed a mosaic of peaches, pears, grapes, and cherries suspended in creamy white clouds. The genius lay in the texture. Unlike ice cream that melted quickly in July heat, this frozen salad softened slowly, maintaining its shape while becoming pleasantly cool and creamy. Children loved hunting for their favorite fruit pieces, while adults appreciated how refreshing it felt after heavy barbecue meals. The frozen fruit salad embodied the spirit of an era when cooks weren't afraid to blur the lines between side dish and dessert. It seemed impossible that something so simple could taste so good, but that was exactly the point. As our freezers filled with commercial treats, this homemade wonder lost its place. We stopped seeing magic in transforming pantry staples into something special, trading creativity for convenience. Ham, salad, gelatin, loaf. Not every gelatin creation was sweet, and none was more practical than the ham salad gelatin loaf. This savory masterpiece turned Sunday's leftover ham into Monday's elegant lunch, proving that ingenuity could be more valuable than expensive ingredients. Ground ham, mixed with chopped pickles, celery, and hard-boiled eggs, all bound together in a light, savory gelatin flavored with chicken broth. When sliced, it revealed a beautiful cross-section of pink, white, and green that looked almost like expensive pâté from a fancy delicatessen. The technique wasn't complicated, but it required understanding. The ham had to be ground fine enough to distribute evenly, but not so fine that it became pasty. The gelatin needed just enough strength to hold everything together without becoming rubbery. This dish solved real problems for busy hostesses. It could be made the day before, it served a crowd, and it looked far more expensive than its humble ingredients suggested. Served on lettuce with crackers, it turned a simple lunch into something worth talking about. The ham loaf disappeared as our eating habits became more casual and our protein choices expanded. We lost appreciation for the alchemy that could transform a leftover into something elegant, preferring authenticity over artistry. But those who remember speak of the quiet pride that came from creating something beautiful with their own hands. Deviled ham pinwheels. When elegant entertaining required more than opening a bag of chips, clever hostesses reached for their rolling pins and created deviled ham pinwheels, sophisticated appetizers that looked like they came from an expensive catering company but cost pennies to make. White bread with crusts, removed, rolled thin, and spread with a mixture of deviled ham, cream cheese, and finely chopped pickles. The spread bread was rolled tightly, wrapped in damp cheesecloth, and chilled until firm. When sliced, each wheel revealed a perfect pink spiral that impressed guests before they even tasted it. The combination worked beautifully. The rich, salty ham was mellowed by cream cheese, while the pickles added just enough acid to cut through the richness. The soft bread provided a neutral backdrop that let the filling shine without competing for attention. Making perfect pinwheels required technique. The bread had to be fresh, but not too soft. The filling spreadable, but not runny. The rolling needed to be firm, but not so tight that the bread cracked. Success came from understanding these small details that made the difference between amateur and professional results. These pinwheels vanished as our appetizer expectations became more exotic and our entertaining more spontaneous. We lost patience for foods that required advanced planning, preferring options that could be assembled at the last minute. But the deviled ham pinwheel represented something valuable, the knowledge that elegance came from execution, not expensive ingredients. Tuna pineapple boat. The tuna pineapple boat sailed into 1960s party tables with tropical flair and practical genius. This wasn't just tuna salad, it was tuna salad with ambitions served in a hollowed-out pineapple half that made every buffet table look like a Hawaiian vacation. Fresh pineapple was carefully scooped out, leaving the shell intact. The pineapple chunks were mixed with flaked tuna, mayonnaise, chopped celery, and sometimes slivered almonds or water chestnuts for crunch. The mixture was piled back into the pineapple shell and garnished with toothpick flags or cherry tomatoes. The flavor combination was revolutionary for its time. The sweet pineapple balanced the salty tuna while adding moisture and tropical brightness. The celery provided crunch, and the almonds, when used, added richness and texture that elevated the dish beyond ordinary tuna salad. Presentation was everything. The pineapple boat looked exotic and expensive, suggesting sophistication and worldliness that impressed guests. It was conversation food, something that made people talk about how creative the hostess was, how interesting the flavors were, how much effort must have gone into preparation. The technique required careful pineapple preparation. The fruit had to be ripe enough to scoop easily, but not so soft that the shell would collapse. The balance of ingredients was crucial. Too much pineapple, and the salad became too sweet. Too little, and you lost the tropical magic. This tropical creation disappeared as our food became more internationally influenced, and tuna fell from favor except in its most expensive forms. We lost appreciation for the playful creativity that could transform everyday ingredients into something special, preferring authenticity over invention. Frozen 7-Up salad. Frozen 7-Up salad walked the line between side dish and dessert with no shame at all. Made from whipped topping, softened cream cheese, crushed pineapple, mini marshmallows, and a splash of 7-Up, it was poured into a casserole dish and frozen into a pastel block of sweet citrus fluff, sometimes green, sometimes pink, always cold and sweet and full of chewy surprises. You'd slice it into squares and serve it next to ham or turkey like it belonged there. And somehow, it kind of did. The carbonation gave it a little lift, the pineapple brought tang, and the marshmallows made it magical. The texture was unlike anything else on the table. Not quite ice cream, not exactly mousse, but something in between that melted slowly on the tongue while releasing layers of flavor. The 7-Up added a subtle effervescence that made each bite feel lighter than it had any right to be. This frozen wonder was the darling of potlucks and Easter tables where Jell-O molds and fruit salads once reigned supreme. It solved the eternal problem of what to bring when the hostess said, "Just bring something sweet," but you weren't much of a baker. Making it successfully required understanding how different ingredients behaved when frozen. The cream cheese had to be perfectly softened for smooth mixing, while the pineapple needed proper draining to prevent ice crystals. The marshmallows stayed pleasantly chewy even when frozen, providing textural interest in every bite. As decades passed, we got pickier about our desserts. We wanted our sweets from bakeries and our sides from scratch. But this frozen salad was pure delight on a hot day. It didn't need a label, just a spoon and a second helping. Pimento cheese ball Christmas tree. When the holidays demanded edible entertainment, creative hostesses shaped pimento cheese into festive forms that impressed guests while stretching modest budgets. The pimento cheese ball Christmas tree transformed a Southern staple into party-worthy presentation that looked far more complicated than it actually was. Sharp cheddar cheese was grated by hand and mixed with cream cheese, mayonnaise, and diced pimentos until smooth and spreadable. The mixture was shaped into a cone on a serving plate, then carefully covered with finely chopped parsley to create the tree effect. Cherry tomatoes or red pepper pieces became ornaments, while a small star cut from yellow cheese crowned the top. The technique required understanding cheese consistency. The mixture had to be firm enough to hold its shape, but soft enough to spread easily on crackers. Room temperature was crucial. Too cold, and the cheese wouldn't mix properly. Too warm, and the shape would collapse. This edible centerpiece solved multiple hosting challenges at once. It looked impressive, fed a crowd, could be made ahead, and used ingredients that were affordable and widely available. Guests could admire the creativity while enjoying familiar flavors they actually wanted to eat. The pimento cheese tree represented the height of hostess achievement, taking humble ingredients and transforming them into something that looked like it required special skills or expensive materials. It was food as performance art, created by women who understood that presentation mattered as much as taste. This festive creation faded as our entertaining became more casual and our cheese preferences more sophisticated. We lost the playful spirit that could see a Christmas tree and a mound of pimento cheese, preferring imported varieties and artisanal presentations over homemade creativity. Molded chicken salad ring. The molded chicken salad ring elevated leftover poultry to heights of elegance it had never imagined. This wasn't just using up Sunday's roast. It was transforming it into something worthy of the finest china, proving that creativity could make any ingredient special. Chopped cooked chicken was mixed with diced celery, hard-boiled eggs, and mayonnaise, then bound with just enough gelatin to hold its ring shape. Some versions included chopped almonds, grapes, or water chestnuts for texture, while others kept it simple and classic. The center of the ring became a canvas for creativity. Sometimes it was filled with crisp lettuce and cherry tomatoes, other times with potato salad or more chicken salad. The most elegant versions featured a carefully composed arrangement of fresh vegetables that complemented the pale yellow ring. Making this dish required understanding the delicate balance between binder and filling. Too much mayonnaise and the mixture wouldn't hold together. Too little and it became dry and unappetizing. The gelatin had to be perfectly set, firm enough to maintain the ring shape, but not so rubbery that it became unpleasant to eat. The flavor was sophisticated in its simplicity. The chicken provided protein and substance, while the celery added crunch, and the eggs contributed richness. Any added fruits or nuts created pleasant textural surprises that kept each bite interesting. This molded masterpiece disappeared as our cooking became more immediate and less planning-oriented. We stopped seeing value in transforming leftovers into something special, preferring to use them in ways that didn't require advanced preparation. But the chicken salad ring represented something valuable. The understanding that with a little creativity, yesterday's dinner could become today's elegant lunch. Frozen cranberry fluff. When holiday cranberries met summer practicality, the result was frozen cranberry fluff, a make-ahead marvel that solved the eternal potluck dilemma while delivering both sweet and tart flavors in a cooling, creamy format that confused the boundaries between salad and dessert with cheerful confidence. Cream cheese was whipped with sugar until fluffy, then folded with whole cranberry sauce, crushed pineapple, and sometimes chopped walnuts or mini marshmallows. The mixture was frozen in a loaf pan until firm enough to slice, creating portions that held their shape while slowly softening to perfect, spoonable consistency. The color was spectacular. Deep red cranberries created marble swirls through the pale pink cream cheese base, while green pineapple pieces and brown nuts added confetti-like texture. When served on lettuce leaves, it looked like festive ice cream that happened to be appropriate for the salad course. The flavor balance was crucial to success. Too much cranberry sauce, and the tartness overwhelmed. Too little, and the dish became cloyingly sweet. The cream cheese provided richness while tempering the cranberry's bite, and the pineapple added tropical brightness that prevented the flavors from becoming too heavy. Each recipe had creativity and memories infused in each bite. The cranberry fluff embodied this perfectly, taking ingredients that shouldn't work together and creating something unexpectedly delicious that solved practical problems while satisfying both sweet and savory cravings. This frozen delight vanished as our freezers became filled with commercial products and our entertaining became more spontaneous. We lost patience for make-ahead dishes that required planning, preferring options that could be assembled at the last minute. Shrimp mold spectacular. When elegant entertaining demanded something impressive, hostesses reached for their fanciest molds and created shrimp mold spectacular, a dish that looked like it came from an expensive restaurant but could be made with ingredients from any grocery store. Cooked shrimp were chopped and mixed with cream cheese, mayonnaise, and seasonings, then bound with gelatin and molded into elaborate shapes. Some versions featured whole shrimp arranged decoratively around the edges, while others included chopped celery, onions, or water chestnuts for texture and flavor complexity. The presentation was everything. Molded on a silver platter and garnished with fresh parsley, lemon wedges, and perhaps some cherry tomatoes, the shrimp mold looked like something that required professional skills. The pale pink color was elegant and appetizing, while the firm texture made serving neat and easy. Making this dish successfully required understanding how different ingredients behaved in gelatin. The shrimp had to be well drained to prevent weeping, while the cream cheese needed to be at perfect temperature for smooth mixing. The seasoning was crucial. enough to enhance the shrimp flavor without overwhelming it. The shrimp mold solved multiple entertaining challenges. It could be made the day before, it looked expensive while using affordable ingredients, and it provided protein that could serve as either appetizer or light lunch. Served with crackers or small toast points, it impressed guests while satisfying appetites. This elegant creation disappeared as our entertaining became more casual and our protein choices expanded. We lost appreciation for foods that made the most of affordable ingredients through skillful preparation, preferring imported delicacies that signaled affluence rather than ingenuity. Hot dog flour casserole. The hot dog flour casserole was what happened when creativity collided with a lack of groceries and a little too much enthusiasm for themed cooking. Sliced hot dogs arranged in flower patterns, surrounded by mashed potatoes and baked until golden. This was family dinner disguised as art project. Regular hot dogs were sliced partway through in several places, then arranged in a baking dish so they opened like flowers when heated. The spaces between were filled with seasoned mashed potatoes, often tinted with food coloring for extra visual impact. Some versions included vegetables like peas or corn kernels for additional color. This wasn't fancy food, but it was enthusiastic food. It showed that even the most humble ingredients could be made special with a little imagination and effort. Children loved the whimsical presentation, while parents appreciated the economical use of inexpensive protein. The technique was simple, but required timing. The hot dogs needed to be scored deeply enough to open properly, but not so much that they fell apart. The mashed potatoes had to be the right consistency, thick enough to hold their shape, but not so stiff that they couldn't be piped or spooned attractively. Making this casserole successful meant embracing its playful nature rather than trying to make it sophisticated. It was food that celebrated creativity over refinement, enthusiasm over elegance. The joy came from the process as much as the result. This whimsical creation faded as our definition of proper food became more refined, and hot dogs fell from favor except for specific occasions. We lost appreciation for food that was honest about its humble origins, but delivered genuine satisfaction through creative presentation. Jellied tuna and vegetable loaf. The jellied tuna and vegetable loaf transformed everyday pantry staples into something that looked like it belonged in a fancy delicatessen window. This wasn't just making do with what you had, it was proving that creativity could make any ingredient elegant. Flaked tuna was mixed with diced hard-boiled eggs, chopped celery, and finely minced onion, then bound with mayonnaise and just enough gelatin to hold its loaf shape. Some versions included diced pickles or olives for extra flavor and color, while others kept it simple and classic. The technique required understanding the right ratio of binder to filling. Too much mayonnaise, and the mixture became sloppy. Too little, and it wouldn't hold together when sliced. The gelatin had to be perfectly measured, enough to maintain the shape, but not so much that the texture became unpleasant. When sliced, each portion revealed an attractive cross-section of ingredients that looked almost like a rustic terrine. The pale yellow background showcased the white eggs and pink tuna, while any added vegetables provided colorful confetti throughout. The flavor was sophisticated in its simplicity. The tuna provided protein and substance, while the eggs added richness, and the vegetables contributed crunch and freshness. A squeeze of lemon juice brightened everything and prevented the mayonnaise from becoming too heavy. This jellied loaf could be made the day before serving, making it perfect for entertaining or busy weeknight dinners. Served on lettuce with crackers or toast points, it looked like something from an expensive specialty shop, while costing a fraction of the price. As our cooking became more immediate and less planning-oriented, dishes like this lost their appeal. We stopped seeing value in transforming everyday ingredients into something special, preferring authenticity over artistry. But the tuna loaf represented the height of practical elegance, making the ordinary extraordinary through skill and creativity. Frozen cheese and olive loaf, when sophisticated entertaining required something impressive but budgets remained modest, creative hostesses discovered that freezing could transform simple ingredients into elegant presentations. The frozen cheese and olive loaf looked like expensive imported cheese, but used ingredients from any corner grocery store. Cream cheese was whipped with mayonnaise until fluffy, then folded with chopped green olives, diced pimientos, and sometimes chopped nuts for texture. The mixture was packed into a loaf pan and frozen until firm enough to unmold and slice, creating a beautiful presentation that impressed guests. The color combination was striking. The pale cream base, studded with bright green olives and red pimientos, created an almost Christmas-like appearance that worked well for any festive occasion. When sliced, each portion revealed an attractive cross-section that looked professionally made. The flavor balance was crucial to success. The olives provided salty, briny notes that were mellowed by the rich cream cheese, while the pimientos added sweetness and color. Any added nuts contributed richness and crunch that made each bite more interesting. Making this loaf successfully required understanding how different ingredients behaved when frozen. The cream cheese had to be at perfect temperature for smooth mixing, while the olives needed to be well drained to prevent ice crystals from forming. This frozen creation could be made days in advance, making it perfect for holiday entertaining when time was precious. Served with crackers or small toast points, it provided an elegant appetizer that looked far more expensive than its humble ingredients suggested. The frozen cheese loaf disappeared as our appetizer expectations became more exotic and our entertaining more spontaneous. We lost appreciation for the ingenuity that could transform everyday ingredients into something special through careful technique and presentation. Perfection potato salad mold. The humble potato salad reached heights of elegance when creative cooks discovered the transformative power of gelatin. Perfection potato salad mold turned this picnic staple into an architectural achievement that looked like it belonged in a fancy restaurant. Traditional potato salad was lightened with whipped gelatin and carefully molded into rings or other decorative shapes. The result was all the familiar flavors of classic potato salad, but with a presentation that impressed guests before they even tasted it. Jellied potato salad involved dissolving lemon Jell-O in hot water, adding vinegar and salt, then folding in well-seasoned potato salad and finely diced cucumber. The mixture was layered in a mold, creating stunning visual effects when unmolded. The technique required careful timing and temperature control. The potato salad had to be well chilled before folding into the gelatin to prevent melting, while the gelatin needed to be at exactly the right consistency for proper mixing and setting. The color coordination was part of the appeal. The pale yellow gelatin complemented the white potatoes and golden egg yolks, while green cucumber and celery added fresh contrast. When sliced, each portion revealed a beautiful cross-section that looked almost like modern molecular gastronomy. Making this dish successfully meant understanding how cooked potatoes behaved in gelatin. They had to be cut to uniform size and properly seasoned, while the mayonnaise ratio needed careful balancing to prevent the mixture from becoming too rich or too loose. This molded wonder disappeared as casualness became valued over formality in dining. We stopped seeing the point in making familiar foods look fancy, preferring authenticity over artistry. But those who remember speak of the pride that came from unmolding a perfect specimen. Frozen pineapple cheese salad. The marriage of tropical pineapple and rich cream cheese found its perfect expression in this frozen creation that graced 1960s tables with exotic flair. Frozen pineapple cheese salad brought Hawaiian sunshine to American potlucks, proving that sophistication could come from the most unexpected combination. Crushed pineapple was carefully drained and folded into whipped cream cheese, along with mini marshmallows and sometimes chopped nut or maraschino cherries for color and texture. The mixture was frozen in a loaf pan until firm enough to slice, creating portions that held their shape while slowly softening to perfect consistency. consistency. The tropical flavors transported diners to island vacations they might never take. The sweet tart pineapple balanced the rich cream cheese perfectly, while any added ingredients provided textural interest and visual appeal. The frozen format made it refreshing and practical for summer entertaining. The color was spectacular, pale yellow from the pineapple and cream cheese base, studded with white marshmallows and whatever colorful additions the cook chose to include. When served on lettuce leaves or in individual portions, it looked like something from a fancy resort. Making this salad required understanding how pineapple behaved when frozen. The fruit had to be extremely well drained to prevent ice crystals, but not so dry that it lost its flavor. The cream cheese needed perfect softening for smooth mixing without becoming too warm. This frozen delight could be made days in advance, solving the eternal problem of what to bring to summer gatherings. It was elegant enough for special occasions, but simple enough for family meals, bridging the gap between everyday and entertaining food. The pineapple cheese salad faded as our tastes became more sophisticated and our entertaining less formal. We lost appreciation for the simple perfection of peak season fruit combined with quality dairy products, preferring more complex flavors and exotic ingredients. Chicken salad aspic ring. When leftover chicken needed to become something special, ambitious hostesses reached for their ring molds and created chicken salad aspic ring, an elegant presentation that transformed humble ingredients into something worthy of the finest china. Chopped cooked chicken was mixed with diced celery, hard-boiled eggs, and seasonings, then bound with a light, savory gelatin that had been flavored with chicken broth and a touch of lemon juice. The mixture was carefully molded into ring shapes that created stunning presentations when unmolded. The center of the ring became a canvas for creativity. Some cooks filled it with fresh vegetables arranged in attractive patterns, while others used it to showcase additional salads or garnishes. The pale yellow aspic provided an elegant backdrop for whatever filled the center space. The technique required understanding the delicate balance between flavor and structure. The gelatin had to be strong enough to hold its shape, but not so firm that it became unpleasant to eat. The chicken needed to be perfectly seasoned and cut to uniform size for even distribution. Great platters of crisp fried chicken, baked ham, big bowls of pale green coleslaw, stuffed eggs, and coconut layer cake were certain to appear at 4th of July celebrations. The chicken aspic ring would have provided an elegant counterpoint to these heartier dishes. The flavor was sophisticated yet familiar, all the tastes of classic chicken salad, but presented in a way that impressed guests. The broth-flavored gelatin added depth without overwhelming the delicate chicken, while the lemon juice provided brightness that prevented the dish from becoming too heavy. Making this ring successfully required careful timing and temperature control. The chicken had to be completely cooled before mixing with the gelatin, and the mixture needed to be stirred gently to avoid breaking up the ingredients while ensuring even distribution. This elegant creation disappeared as our entertaining became more casual and our protein choices expanded. We lost appreciation for the alchemy that could transform leftovers into something special, preferring simplicity over the artistry that once defined gracious entertaining. Frozen lime marshmallow salad. The lime marshmallow salad reached its frozen perfection when creative cooks discovered that freezing could transform this already unusual combination into something even more magical. Frozen lime marshmallow salad brought tropical coolness to summer tables while solving the eternal problem of make-ahead entertaining. Lime gelatin was prepared and partially set, then whipped until fluffy and folded with mini marshmallows, crushed pineapple, and sometimes cottage cheese or cream cheese for richness. The mixture was frozen until firm enough to slice, creating a beautiful green dessert salad that impressed with both flavor and presentation. The color was striking, pale green with white marshmallow pieces and golden pineapple chunks, creating a confetti-like effect throughout. When served in neat slices on glass plates, it looked like something from a fancy restaurant rather than a home kitchen. The texture was the real revelation. The frozen format prevented the marshmallows from becoming too soft while keeping the gelatin from becoming rubbery. Each bite delivered different textures, creamy, chewy and smooth, that kept the eating experience interesting. Various shades of fruit-flavored Jell-O were cooks' paintbrushes for creating colorful presentations. The lime version brought tropical brightness to traditional gelatin repertoires, adding exotic flair to familiar techniques. The flavor balance required careful attention. The lime had to be strong enough to hold its own against the sweet marshmallows and pineapple, but not so tart that it became unpleasant. Some cooks added sugar to round out the flavors, while others relied on the natural sweetness of the other ingredients. Making this salad successfully meant understanding how different ingredients behaved when frozen. The gelatin base provided structure, while the dairy additions prevented ice crystals from forming. The marshmallows stayed pleasantly chewy, even when frozen, providing textural interest. This frozen creation faded as our dessert expectations became more elaborate and our entertaining more spontaneous. We lost patience for dishes that required advanced planning, preferring options that could be assembled at the last minute. Molded corned beef salad. When St. Patrick's Day flavors met 4th of July creativity, the result was molded corned beef salad, a dish that proved American cooks could take inspiration from anywhere and make it uniquely their own. This savory gelatin creation elevated leftover corned beef into something elegant enough for company. Chopped corned beef was mixed with diced vegetables and bound with a clear gelatin that had been flavored with the cooking liquid from the meat. The result was a savory aspic that captured all the flavors of traditional corned beef and cabbage in an elegant, sliceable form. The cooking liquid provided the base for a rich, flavorful gelatin that showcased the meat and vegetables like jewels in amber. When sliced, each portion revealed an attractive cross-section that looked almost like an expensive charcuterie terrine. The technique required understanding how to balance flavors and textures. The cooking liquid had to be strained and cooled properly, while the vegetables needed to be cut to uniform size for even distribution. The timing was crucial for achieving the right consistency. Cooks could showcase ingredients with clear gelatin or aspic, using sinkers and floaters to achieve certain looks. The corned beef salad took advantage of this technique, with different ingredients settling at different rates to create natural layers. The flavor was intensely savory and satisfying. The spiced cooking liquid provided depth and complexity, while the corned beef added richness, and the vegetables contributed freshness and crunch. Some versions included a touch of horseradish or mustard for extra bite. This aspic required confidence to serve. It wasn't a dish for timid hosts or conservative guests. It demanded appreciation for bold flavors and willingness to try something unexpected. But for those who embraced it, the corned beef salad was a conversation starter that delivered genuine satisfaction. The molded salad disappeared as our tastes became more internationally influenced and less experimental with familiar ingredients. We lost the adventurous spirit that could see potential in any combination, preferring to keep traditional dishes in traditional forms. Cucumber cream cheese mold. When summer cucumbers reached their peak, creative cooks found ways to showcase their crisp freshness in elegant presentations. The cucumber cream cheese mold transformed this humble garden vegetable into something sophisticated enough for the finest buffet table. Fresh cucumbers were peeled, seeded, and finely chopped, then mixed with softened cream cheese and bound with just enough gelatin to create a firm but tender mold. The pale green color was both cooling and elegant, while the fresh cucumber flavor provided a refreshing contrast to heavier dishes. The technique required careful attention to moisture content. Cucumbers naturally contained a lot of water, which could prevent proper gelatin setting if not handled correctly. The vegetables had to be salted and drained to remove excess moisture before mixing with the other ingredients. Some versions enhanced the basic recipe with fresh herbs like dill or chives, while others added a touch of lemon juice for brightness. The key was maintaining the delicate cucumber flavor while creating a stable structure that would unmold beautifully. The presentation was part of the appeal. Molded in ring shapes or decorative forms, the cucumber mold looked like something from a professional kitchen. Garnished with fresh cucumber slices or herb sprigs, it provided an elegant vegetable option that impressed guests. Making this mold successfully required understanding how vegetables behaved in gelatin. The cucumbers had to be prepared properly to prevent weeping, while the cream cheese needed to be at perfect temperature for smooth mixing without curdling. This cooling creation was perfect for summer entertaining, providing a refreshing option that could be made ahead and looked impressive on any table. It solved the problem of what to do with abundant garden cucumbers while creating something special enough for company. The cucumber mold faded as our vegetable preparations became simpler and less formal. We lost appreciation for techniques that could transform everyday garden produce into elegant presentations, preferring raw vegetables or simple preparations over more elaborate molded forms. Frozen cherry cheese salad. The frozen cherry cheese salad brought the flavors of summer orchards to tables year-round, proving that canned fruit could be transformed into something as elegant as any fresh preparation. This make-ahead marvel combined sweet cherries with rich cream cheese in a frozen format that solved multiple entertaining challenges. Cream cheese was whipped with sugar until fluffy, then folded with well-drained canned cherries, and sometimes chopped nuts or mini marshmallows for texture. The mixture was frozen in loaf pans until firm enough to slice, creating beautiful portions that showcased the red cherries against the pale pink base. The color was spectacular. Deep red cherries created jewel-like spots throughout the creamy base, while any added ingredients provided additional textural interest. When served on lettuce leaves or individual plates, it looked like an expensive dessert from a fancy restaurant. The flavor balance was crucial to success. The cherries provided tartness that was mellowed by the rich cream cheese and sugar, while any nuts added richness and crunch that made each bite more interesting. The frozen format concentrated the flavors while creating a refreshing texture. Making this salad required understanding how cherries behaved when frozen. They had to be extremely well drained to prevent ice crystals, but not rinsed so thoroughly that they lost their flavor. The cream cheese provided richness while preventing the mixture from becoming too hard when frozen. This frozen delight could be made days in advance, making it perfect for busy hostesses who wanted to serve something impressive without last-minute preparation. It bridged the gap between salad and dessert, working equally well in either role. The cherry cheese salad disappeared as our freezers became filled with commercial products, and our entertaining became more casual. We lost appreciation for make-ahead dishes that required planning, preferring options that could be assembled spontaneously. Barbecue Bologna slabs. Barbecue Bologna slabs were once the backyard delicacy of families that couldn't afford ribs but still knew how to party. Imagine a thick slice of Bologna, scored on the edges so it would curl up like a flower on the grill, slathered in sweet, sticky barbecue sauce, and transformed into a smoky, caramelized masterpiece that tasted like rebellion against the meat hierarchy. In the 1950s through the 1970s, this was the working man's barbecue. You could slap it between two buns with slaw or eat it with a fork while fireworks popped overhead. The technique was simple but effective. Score the edges to prevent curling into an unappetizing cup, brush with sauce, and grill until the edges crisped and the center heated through. But when Bologna's reputation went south, so did its barbecue career. People stopped seeing it as creative and started calling it trashy. The slabs disappeared from cookouts, replaced by gourmet sausages and $12 burger patties. But make no mistake, those slabs were once a summertime crown jewel, cheap, cheerful, and unapologetically delicious. They represented a time when good food didn't need fancy pedigree, just honest flavor and creative technique. The barbecue Bologna taught us that any protein could be transformed with the right treatment. The scoring allowed even cooking while creating attractive presentation, and the sauce added complexity that elevated the humble meat into something special. This disappeared dish reminds us that food snobbery sometimes costs us more than we realize. We lost a technique that could make affordable ingredients taste special, trading creativity for conformity to current food trends. Macaroni and pickle salad. Macaroni and pickle salad was what happened when someone opened the fridge before a picnic and said, "This will do." Old elbow macaroni, cubed cheddar, sliced celery, and chopped sweet pickles, all mixed with a generous helping of mayonnaise and maybe a spoonful of pickle juice for kick. It wasn't a gourmet side dish. It was a miracle of utility, served in massive yellow Tupperware bowls. It was the kind of thing that showed up without fail at family reunions and Independence Day spreads. The cheese sweated in the heat. Pickles turned everything slightly tangy. No one cared. It was comfort in a scoop. Versions even had bits of ham or boiled egg to stretch it further. But the real genius of the dish was its honesty. It didn't pretend to be anything other than what it was, cool, creamy, and full of leftovers. The pickle juice was the secret ingredient that set this apart from ordinary macaroni salad. It added brightness and tang that cut through the mayonnaise while enhancing all the other flavors. Sweet pickles provided textural contrast and bursts of concentrated flavor. Now it's almost vanished. We gave it up for pre-packaged pasta salads with clean labels and mysterious seasonings, but nothing ever replaced that strange little salad with the odd ingredients and the giant heart. Technique was forgiving. Overcooked macaroni actually worked better because it absorbed more flavor, and the proportions could be adjusted based on what was available. It was cooking by intuition rather than strict recipe following. This humble salad represented the best of American ingenuity, making something delicious from whatever was on hand, without apology or pretension. Frozen strawberry shortcake logs. Frozen strawberry shortcake logs were the dream of a dessert that required no oven and very little fuss. Graham crackers layered with whipped topping and marinated strawberries, stacked into a loaf shape and frozen overnight. And sliced, it revealed lovely pink and white stripes, soft and sweet, and a little crunchy from the barely thawed crackers. Sometimes there was a drizzle of chocolate syrup, sometimes a cherry on top. Always cold, always nostalgic. This wasn't shortcake in the traditional sense. It was a dessert pretending to be cake, wearing a coat of convenience and summer charm. Showed up at cookouts, potlucks, and pool parties, brought out with fanfare and eaten in silence, because once you started, you didn't want to stop. The contrast of textures was part of the appeal. The soft strawberries and cream against the slightly firm graham crackers created an interesting eating experience. The strawberries had to be macerated with sugar to release their juices, which then soaked into the graham crackers and helped bind everything together. Whipped topping provided richness while keeping the dessert light and refreshing. With time came change. Freezers filled with store-bought novelties, and no one wanted to assemble dessert anymore. The log was forgotten. Its layers collapsed in the heat of modern efficiency. But if you ever made one, you remember it. Slicing, stripes, the first cold bite of strawberry summer on a fork. It represented a time when homemade treats were worth the small effort required to create something special. Frozen log taught us that elegance could come from simple ingredients handled with care, that planning ahead could create magic that no store-bought option could match. Tang pie. Tang pie came straight from the space race to your summer table, a no-bake wonder whipped from powdered tang, sweetened condensed milk, and whipped topping, poured into a graham cracker crust and chilled until sliceable. It was bright orange, shockingly sweet, tart enough to make your mouth pucker. Kids loved it. Moms loved that the oven stayed off. It tasted like astronaut food collided with dreams of Florida vacations. It was zippy, retro, and proudly artificial. Some versions added orange zest or cream cheese, but the core was always that neon powdered tang, packed with vitamins and promise. Today we look sideways at powdered drink mixes and crave authenticity, but back then this pie was pure joy in a pan. Didn't pretend to be homemade. It was proudly prefab, quick to make and gone before the condensation dried on the pie plate. The technique was almost foolproof. Mix the Tang with condensed milk until smooth, fold in whipped topping, pour into crust, and chill. The Tang provided both flavor and the perfect color, while the condensed milk added richness and helped everything set properly. Graham cracker crust was the perfect complement, sweet and crunchy. It provided textural contrast to the smooth filling, while its honey flavor balanced the Tang's tartness. Some cooks crushed vanilla wafers instead for a different flavor profile. If you grew up with it, you can still taste that wild burst of orange. It never really left your tongue, and maybe that was the point. Food that made such a strong impression that decades later, just thinking about it could transport you back to summer afternoons and space-age optimism. The Tang pie represented a moment in American food history when artificial flavors were exciting rather than suspect, when technology promised to make everything better, including dessert. Pineapple upside-down cupcakes. Pineapple upside-down cupcakes were a backyard barbecue's answer to fancy dessert, festive, portioned, and a little bit whimsical. Each cupcake tin held a swirl of brown sugar and melted butter, a pineapple ring tucked neatly inside, and a cherry right in the center like a ruby crown. Spoonfuls of yellow cake batter covered the fruit, and into the oven they went. When flipped out, they emerged glossy and golden, perfectly caramelized on top, juicy in the middle, and soft as sunshine beneath. They smelled like vacation, looked like a party, and tasted like nostalgia wrapped in syrup. You'd find them at birthday parties, potlucks, or any gathering where someone cared enough to bring dessert but didn't want to deal with a knife and plates. Their charm was in their simplicity. You didn't need frosting, just a fork and a smile. The technique required understanding how sugar caramelized and how fruit released its juices. The brown sugar and butter had to be distributed evenly to prevent sticking, while the pineapple rings needed to be well drained to prevent soggy bottoms. They faded into the background now, replaced by cupcakes with swirls and sprinkles. But once upon a time, these little upside-down beauties stole the show with nothing more than fruit and flair. They represented the best of American baking, taking a classic cake and making it portable, personal, and perfect for sharing. The individual portions solved the eternal party problem of how to serve cake to a crowd without making a mess. Each person got their own perfect serving, complete with caramelized fruit on top. Coca-Cola marinated ribs. Coca-Cola marinated ribs were what happened when sweetness met smoke and said, "Let's throw a backyard party." In the 1970s, this recipe swept across picnic tables and charcoal grills alike. Pork ribs were soaked in a marinade of Coca-Cola, ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, and sometimes a splash of liquid smoke. The soda's syrupy sweetness worked magic on the meat, breaking down the fibers while adding a caramelized edge once it hit the flame. Dads called it their secret weapon. Moms copied the recipe onto index cards with flair. The ribs came out sticky, tender, and just a little bit wild, like summer itself. Kids would lick their fingers down to the wrist. The smell of them cooking was a neighborhood event, but as soda fell out of culinary favor and rib techniques got more serious, this quirky concoction faded. No dry rub or fancy smoker ever quite brought back the joy of ribs cooked with pure, unapologetic cola. It was never just about the flavor. It was about the feeling of standing barefoot on the grass, grill smoke in the air, and sweet, messy ribs that made you feel like you were living high on the hog. The Coca-Cola acted as both tenderizer and flavoring agent, its acids breaking down tough meat fibers, while its sugars created beautiful caramelization. The combination with ketchup and Worcestershire created a complex sauce that was both familiar and unexpected. This recipe represented American cooking at its most inventive, taking an everyday beverage and discovering its potential as a cooking ingredient. It was the kind of experimentation that happened in backyard kitchens across the country. Flag sheet cake. Flag sheet cake with buttercream and berries was the edible banner of every 4th of July celebration from the 1960s onward. You took a boxed white cake, baked it in a long rectangular pan, and slathered it with homemade or store-bought buttercream frosting. Then came the artistry: rows of sliced strawberries for the red stripes, piped frosting for the whites, and a corner of blueberries dotted with icing stars for that Old Glory vibe. It was sugary patriotism at its most sincere. There was nothing fancy about it, but it always earned a chorus of oohs when brought out to the table. It was a cake meant to be admired, then devoured by sticky fingers and paper plates. Everyone got a square and everyone had a favorite corner. Over time, fancier desserts nudged it off the table. Berry tarts, flag-themed trifles, even parfaits tried to take its place, but none of them had the humble heart of that cake. You didn't need a culinary degree to make it, just a little time, some patience, and a whole lot of love for red, white, and blue. The technique was accessible to any home baker. The cake could be made from a mix or from scratch, and the decorating required no special skills beyond the ability to arrange fruit in straight lines. The blueberries naturally stayed in place, while the strawberries needed to be sliced evenly for the best stripe effect. The visual impact was immediate and unmistakable. Everyone knew exactly what it represented the moment they saw it. It was food as patriotic expression, simple and direct in its symbolism. This cake represented the best of American home baking, unpretentious, inclusive, and celebratory. It brought people together around shared symbols and sweet treats, creating memories that lasted long after the last crumb was eaten. Bologna salad sandwich spread. Bologna salad sandwich spread was the lunchbox savior of 1,000 summer picnics. You started with bologna, cheap, pink, and often a little sweaty from the fridge, then ran it through a hand-crank meat grinder or food processor. Add a big dollop of mayonnaise, a spoonful of sweet pickle relish, maybe a bit of mustard, and stir until it resembled a meaty paste. It was a curious shade of pinkish beige, but it packed flavor. Spread thick between slices of white bread or on Ritz crackers, and you had a sandwich that stuck to your ribs and your memory. Some versions threw in boiled egg, grated onion, or even shredded cheese. It was the food of economy, yes, but also of nostalgia. Every bite tasted like sitting on a picnic blanket, sun in your eyes, ants marching nearby. These days, deli meats are artisanal and spreads come from the refrigerated section. Bologna salad's reputation didn't survive the era of food shame, but to those who grew up eating it, this pink, creamy mess wasn't just a sandwich. It was a story, a ritual, a comfort that clung to the roof of your mouth and your heart. The grinding was crucial. It had to be fine enough to spread easily, but not so fine that it became paste. The pickle relish added sweetness and texture, while the mayonnaise bound everything together and provided richness. This spread represented Depression-era ingenuity carried forward through generations, taking an inexpensive protein and transforming it into something that could feed a family. It was honest food that didn't apologize for its humble origins. The Bologna salad reminded us that sometimes the most humble ingredients, treated with care and creativity, could create comfort that lasted a lifetime. Grilled cheese stuffed zucchini boats. Grilled cheese stuffed zucchini boats were born from gardens that overproduced and fridges that underwhelmed. Big summer zucchinis were hollowed out and loaded with cubes of Velveeta or slices of American cheese wrapped in foil and tossed right onto the grill. The result was a soft, smoky vegetable vessel bursting with molten, gooey gold. This dish was part resourcefulness, part whimsy. It felt like a side dish pretending to be an entree, or maybe the other way around. It showed up at potlucks and cookouts, usually made by someone with a backyard garden and a lot of opinions about what real cheese should taste like. It was vegetarian before the word got trendy, but it never claimed to be healthy, just delicious, melty, and weirdly satisfying. Somewhere in the shift to kale chips and grilled portobellos, the zucchini boat sank. It was too humble, too messy, too cheesy for the modern palate. But once it was summer food at its finest, strange, sincere, and hot enough to burn the roof of your mouth if you were impatient, which we always were. The technique required understanding how zucchini behaved on the grill. The foil wrapper was essential to prevent the vegetable from drying out while allowing the cheese to melt properly. The zucchini had to be large enough to hold a good amount of cheese, but not so big that it wouldn't cook through. This dish solved the eternal summer problem of what to do with oversized zucchini while creating something that both kids and adults could enjoy. It was cooking with what you had, making the most of garden abundance. The grilled zucchini boats represented backyard cooking at its most creative, taking vegetables that might otherwise go to waste and turning them into something special with just cheese and fire. Cherry Cola Gelatin Ring. Cherry Cola Gelatin Ring was a dessert with flair and fizz, often pulled from the fridge like a magician's trick. Canned black cherries and cola were folded into cherry Jell-O, then poured into a ring mold and chilled until jiggly perfection. Sometimes there were walnuts, sometimes cream cheese, occasionally a swirl of sour cream on the side for the brave. It was sweet, dark, and oddly refreshing, like drinking a soda and eating candy at the same time. The ring shape gave it an air of formality, a kind of Midwestern elegance. When it arrived at the table, guests didn't know whether to applaud or flee, but it always disappeared in scoops. This dish thrived in the era of molded salads and gelatin adventures when dessert was both architecture and experiment. But time caught up to it. Cherry Cola lost its charm, and Jell-O molds fell into obscurity. Today it might look like a relic, but back then it was a little crown of color and courage. It took guts to serve it, and even more to love it. The cola provided carbonation that gave the gelatin an interesting texture, while the cherries added tartness and visual appeal. The dark color was dramatic and sophisticated, especially when served on a glass plate with proper garnishes. Making this ring required understanding how carbonated beverages behaved in gelatin. The cola had to be partially flat to prevent the gelatin from becoming too foamy, but not completely flat, or it lost its distinctive flavor. This dessert represented the height of creative gelatin work, taking familiar flavors and combining them in unexpected ways to create something memorable and conversation-worthy. Barbecue Chicken Potato Chip Bake. Barbecue Chicken Potato Chip Bake was born from desperation and genius, a casserole that relied on pantry staples and convenience. It featured chicken breasts or thighs baked in a tangy, ketchup-based barbecue sauce, then topped with a heavy layer of crushed potato chips just before the final bake. The chips got crispy, the sauce bubbled up, and the whole thing smelled like a picnic trapped in an oven. It was salty, sweet, and crunchy in all the right ways. Moms loved it because it was fast and used up leftovers. Dads loved it because it tasted like snack food met Sunday dinner. Kids loved it because chips were involved. No one questioned its logic. It was dinner. Somewhere along the way, the casserole fell from favor, deemed too lowbrow, too high sodium, too vintage for modern meal planning. But there was something thrilling in every bite of that chip-crusted chicken. It was comfort food with a secret identity. Party snack by day, weeknight savior by night, and it always felt just a little bit rebellious. The technique was simple but effective. The chicken was browned first for better flavor, then baked in sauce until tender. The potato chips were added only in the final minutes to maintain their crunch. Timing was everything. This casserole represented American ingenuity at its finest, taking ingredients that shouldn't work together and creating something that was greater than the sum of its parts. It was honest food that delivered satisfaction without pretension. The chip-crusted chicken reminded us that sometimes the best comfort foods came from the most unexpected combinations, that creativity in the kitchen could transform ordinary ingredients into something memorable. Canned peach and cottage cheese towers. Canned peach and cottage cheese towers were the unspoken stars of every old-school buffet line. Take a ring or half of canned peach, place it on a lettuce leaf, and spoon in a dollop of cold cottage cheese. Stack another peach ring on top, repeat the cheese, and finish it off with a light dusting of paprika. It looked odd. It tasted intriguing. The sweetness of the syrupy peach met the salty tang of the curds in a clash that somehow worked. It was cooling, it was light, it was a nod to health food trends of the 60s and 70s, back when cottage cheese was practically a lifestyle, but it also felt a little fancy thanks to the garnish and the tower-like structure. These days, cottage cheese gets whipped and turned into TikTok recipes. Peaches are fresh, grilled, artisanal. The tower has fallen, but this strange little salad was once a staple. It asked nothing of you except a fork and an open mind, and that maybe is exactly what summer food should be. The presentation was key. The careful stacking created visual interest, while the paprika added color and a hint of spice. The contrast between the sweet peaches and tangy cottage cheese created a balanced bite that was both refreshing and satisfying. This simple dish represented the intersection of health consciousness and convenience that defined much of mid-century American eating. It was wholesome without being complicated, elegant without being expensive. The peach and cottage cheese tower reminded us that sometimes the simplest combinations could be the most satisfying, that good food didn't always require complex preparation or exotic ingredients. These 30 recipes tell the story of American creativity, practicality, and the eternal human desire to make something special from whatever we have on hand. They represent a time when cooks weren't afraid to experiment, when presentation mattered, and when food could be both nourishing and beautiful. We lost more than recipes when these dishes faded away. We lost the patient art of molding and timing, the playful spirit that could see potential in any combination, and the understanding that food was a canvas for creativity, not just fuel for our bodies. Maybe it's time to remember that the best traditions aren't always the ones that survived, but the ones that remind us what we're capable of when we approach cooking with curiosity, courage, and just a little bit of whimsy. If this journey through forgotten flavors brought back memories or sparked your curiosity, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the foods that shaped America. Sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones we almost forgot to tell.